he's a water engineer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, whether he's fighting or not, the dude's well off.
Yeah, he's not going to.
That's why he didn't care.
Want for anything. And that's what, Trevor Whitman is his trainer, is a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys that followed me around when I was, younger and stuff, and learned. Very smart kid, very talented, picks up things quickly. Goes with the philosophy that I've always gone in. You stop learning, you should stop teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you walk in a gym, I walk in a gym and everybody says, "Oh, how you doing?" I shake everybody's hands. But when I walk in there for a reason. I walk in to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what it is, but I've got to learn something in that gym before I leave. And then I'll steal it, put it in my program, and say I invented it.
That's it.
That's the way you should do it. One of my main trainers, Gabe Charbonneau,
Gabe real well. Yeah. I worked his corner a couple times.
Yeah, and that was always his philosophy. Always be a student, and I took that from him. That's an absolute. The first 2 weeks that I ever worked with him.
That's an absolute. I was taught that by Fred Preacher Lewis, and I'm sure you all seen the truck with the scripture on it and the.
Yeah.
Old black guy driving and everything. If they only knew the history with that man and who that man was. The guy was the national champ, the Air Force champ, the all-service champ, the Pan American Gold champ, lost in the semifinals of the Olympic trials to Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
That's the pedigree this guy had, but he chose to be the preacher that he was.
Wow.
Well, that's crazy because I never knew that. I see that truck all the time. I never knew that.
He retired from the Air Force and retired from boxing, and his ministry was going to the rest homes to minister to the folks that couldn't get out, that wanted him to come, would request him. He'd go to the rest homes, go and see them individually if he needed to. That's what he did.
That's awesome. Well, and I've always said fighters are some of the greatest people on earth.
Yeah.
Everybody has this stigma with them, and they just think that they're temperamental and that they've all been through something. I'm sure, not every single one of them, but there's a lot of struggle, and there's a lot of. That's where boxing came from. That's what made it big. Was
kind of like the bikers too.
Yeah,
it's the same. Yeah. If people knew that our history, we're considered fighters, bikers, and so on like that, but we're also. Number one, we're family men. We're good dads. I was on the school board. I'm very well educated, and people look at me. I had a guy tell me that he wouldn't introduce me to his friends because of my tattoos.
Really?
And I said, "You're kidding, right?" And he said, "No." He said, "They don't understand tattoos in your life and the kind of person you are." I said, "Is that the guy that raised the kids that are now all successful, or the school board member, or the guy that had the youth center that trained the kids forever?" I said, "Oh, you're talking about the guy that rides the motorcycle."
Same guy.
Yeah, same guy, just a different coat.
But they don't realize that you're the same guy that does the toy runs and does the fundraisers and randomly goes out on a corner panhandling so that you can raise money and give it to a charity.
I had to do that just to see. Because when I read that you were doing that, I thought you really need to try that because it's very humbling. First off, the corner that I was on, I walked across the street with the little get-up that I had on, and in the 3 days of beard and the dirty clothes and everything, and I walked across the road to a restaurant that I'd eaten at a number of times. And asked to use the restroom because I really needed to use it. And I ended up hoisting my leg on a tree. No, but anyway, I walked in and they pointed toward me, "Get out. Don't come in here." No. I said, "I will pay you to use your restroom." I said, "No, we don't want you or your kind in here." And I said, "Okay." Very humbling. Went back on the corner. There were people that were saying, "Get a job." There were people that were giving me $20. There was people, which I thought was the coolest one, that give me a food packet that also had a bath packet in it. So I could eat and bathe. And I thought that was probably the coolest thing. And I had a little camera in my sign where I was recording the people that were giving me the stuff. Yeah. And so we got a lot of it. And then I took it down and donated it to the Salvation Army, the money I made, which was considerable. Believe me, you can make some good money.
Well, yeah, that's why they're doing it.
I wonder if anybody followed me when I was finished and watched them get in my Jaguar, which is an old jalopy, but it's still a beautiful car, right? I could just hear him saying, "Oh yeah," and this one guy went and he got in the Jaguar and drove away.
Well, you know that we've had a couple people that have actually say words. Say words.
Turn his down.
Yeah, because I'm kind of loud.
He's like you. He goes quiet and then he goes loud.
Comes back and is all right, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm so sorry.
Your jalopy of a Jaguar.
Yeah, my jalopy of a Jaguar. But I could just imagine what they said if they would have recorded that, And
yeah.
But it was a good experience. I've done it like 5 times.
Have you really?
And it's probably time to do it again, just to see if the climate has changed, which I'm sure it hasn't.
We can team up. We can all take a corner.
Yeah, we just find a corner and we'll all stand on the. It seems like the ugliest and dirtiest guy will get the most money, so I will beat you guys very easily.
I don't know about that.
So.
I don't know. I think that's kind of true. I had a guy who came up to my window, and this is after we've talked about our stuff with the panhandling. Came up to my window, and he said, he was just hungry, and he just needed. Did I have anything in my truck with me for food? And I said, no, I didn't. And I said, but here's what I'm going to do. I said, take down my number. I wrote down my number. I gave it to him. I said, call me tomorrow, and I'm going to figure out a way to get you a job. And this guy called me the next day.
Okay, very cool.
And normally that wouldn't happen. Normally that guy would crumble that up and toss it to the side.
And I'll explain a little bit about that when you're finished.
But, I was able to get that guy in the right direction. And he was busted. I mean, he looked really, really bad. But anybody that comes up and asks for food and not money, that right there is like huge difference to me. And I'll be willing to help all day long.
Well, after I had finished the first or the second time, I believe it was, I finished, I went behind the building and I had to pee. So, yes, I did pee in public. Not where anybody could see, but it was out in the open. And my God, that was probably the best pee I ever took. But I went on over.
One of those ones where the sun is actually shining on it.
The shivers.
Yeah.
The shiver pee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm glad we got that out.
He's got like background music in him. And
I get that shiver every time I'm in the swimming pool.
I had with the little blue stuff that comes around you while you're. Yeah. You've ridden in my swimming pool. You will not be invited again. But
I didn't know you had the blue stuff.
Well, it didn't show in the water. It showed on your back, and you didn't know. So it was. So I walked behind the building, and I was sitting with the guys and everything. They asked who I was, and I told them, who I was and everything. And we talked a little, where are you from? And, we went through all the preliminaries. And I was asked if I wanted any meth that they would sell me.
Really?
I was asked if I wanted to toke a joint or two, and I was asked, by some, one guy wanted to preach to me and everything else. But this is the bad part of it all. The crew that I was with, none of them wanted to work. None of them wanted anything but the money to get them through the night, whether it be with booze, food, drugs, or whatever. They just wanted to survive for the night. The reason some of them give was they give up on society. They had quit. They didn't want any more of it. The others obviously had the addictions that they, needed to fight but weren't willing to. But I didn't meet any of them that said, I'm going to go find a job tomorrow.
Do you feel like people that give, because I've got a controversial opinion about this, because I just refuse to give money to them.
Well, I've got it both ways. It depends on my mood and the person.
No, I shouldn't say to all of them, because the other day, like Ty's little brother was in the car, and Lucian knows that I just won't give money. I don't go cussing at him. I don't throw things at him. I don't do anything like that. I don't pay attention. I don't think that it's, my opinion is that most of them are probably on drugs.
Right. I think there's some out there that want jobs like Druid said, and God bless them.
No, absolutely.
I support that 100%.
And I'm sure that if they do want a job, that eventually they will find one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But there was a guy out there that was standing that was clearly homeless, and it's on an intersection where they usually have 2 or 3 off of Powers and Constitution. And there was a guy there that little produce market that's back in that parking lot. He was holding a sign for them. So he's trying to work, and he's trying to earn, some legit money through this produce stand. So I asked him, I said, "Are you able to accept tips?" And he said, "Yes." And he had a little dog with him and everything. So I gave him, a handful of ones or whatever. And that I told Lucian, I said, I will help him because he's trying to help himself. So someone who is actually trying, they deserve a hand up, here and there. But
I got confronted on Voyager and Academy the other day. I had went and bought me some Kentucky Fried Chicken. That is my weakness, my junk food. My 3-piece meal is heaven to me.
Do you get slaw or what's your combo?
Slaw and potatoes and gravy. Yeah. I mean, what else is there?
That's the go-to for me as well.
And so I was driving home, and I was getting ready to turn, and he walks up to the window, and he shrugs his shoulder. And so I shrugged my shoulders back. And he said, "You serious?" And I said, "Serious about what?" He said, "You're not going to give me anything?" And I said, "It's kind of my choice, right?" And he said, "You people in Colorado suck." And I said, "Well, you're standing right next to the interstate." I said, "Instead of putting that sign out, you can put your thumb out."
Yeah.
And he said, "You guys are a bunch of assholes." I said, "Yeah, we are." I said, "But let me tell you, I pass 100 of you guys every single day on every single corner. If I give $1 to everybody that I seen every time, which probably wouldn't be a bad thing if you could afford it, but I can't afford 100 a day. So I'm very selective if I give and who I give and if I do give or not. And I don't give very often because of the fact that, I've stood out there on the corner for 4 or 5 times and seen what happens and been with them. I will give them food.
Sure.
I will give them a care packet, but I'm not going to give them money because I seen real quickly where the money went. It went right in the liquor store, right to the guy that was selling them the meth.
Yeah, and I've seen people turn down food. I don't want food.
I don't want a meal. Yeah. And so that's the way I check is I had care packages made up. I don't know if you remember. I had care packages made up. And I had a lot of people giving them out. We give out probably 500 at least care packages. Out of the 500, we only got 10 refused. The other people took it, even if they threw it away or anything, they took it, But I thought that was the best way to do it. Give them the toiletries and give them something to eat that gets them through the day. And they're going to be out there the next day and somebody else can get them through the day and everything else because that's kind of the life that they lead. And if they do want a job, and this is very important, right now anybody that wants a job can get a job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not an economy to where there's no jobs and everything's downtrodden. It's very, very strong right now that anybody that wants a job can find a job. Some have harder times, whether it be because of their past or because of the way they live now or the lack of transportation or anything else. But there's a solution to every problem out there to make sure that if you want to, you can work.
Exactly.
That's the way I believe. And so that guy, he was ready to fist fight with me. And as you know, I have trouble in my car.
You do.
I've had more street fights in my car than I've had.
People randomly walking up to Dickie and punching him while he's in his car. I'm serious.
My life is very, very jaded in the past when I was drinking and I can tell you my history. When I drank, I've had over 200 street fights. Nothing to be proud of. If I'm never in another fight in my life, I'm a happy man. Should never be in a fight. It's not fair for a man that's been trained,
right,
like me, to punch other people in a bar. I'm so disappointed in my lifestyle back then. So disappointed in myself, the way I lived.
We're all there.
Right.
And, yeah, we can relate, and we're round tabling with a lot of people with the same experience. But I have a problem that I'm on a 2-wheel bike, and I can tell you, I'm one of the better riders there is. I can ride forever. I can ride anywhere. Put me in the car, and for whatever reason, it all falls away. I'm like the worst driver. I'll be changing the radio, listening, and I'll be driving and kind of doze off into my own little world, thinking about what's going on, what I need to do, and all of a sudden I'm at a stoplight, pow, and I get hit right in the jaw, and I think, why? First off, what did I do?
Well, you don't have to do anything out here. It's funny. We took a trip to Mexico this year, And, you know, the way I don't know if you've ever been to Mexico.
Yes, I have, yeah.
The way they drive down there is amazing. Man. It's amazing. Like, they're all over the place. There's no lines. I mean, very few and far between. And then there's, instead of stoplights every 100 feet, there's these little bumps that you have to slow down for that'll jack up your suspension or whatever. But these guys are riding next to each other. They're on each other's asses. They're cutting each other off. And nobody's upset. Nobody's mad. Everybody is hauling ass trying to get where they got to go. Out here, Colorado, if you're in the fast lane,